So there was a crowd gathered in Orlando, Florida, many years ago to celebrate one of the activities at Disneyland. And a woman was saying in the background, "It's a shame. It's really too bad that Walt wasn't alive to see it." And his wife overheard the woman, and she looked at her and she said, "He did see it. That's why we're here." He did see it. That's why we're here. You may not think of yourself as a visionary as far as some corporate understanding or how many children you're going to have and how successful they are going to be. But every person here is a visionary. You're already future seeing what your day is going to be. You set in motion what your week will be like and how much energy you will have, and you celebrate how many friends you're going to have and what you're going to do between now and the holiday season, hopefully more than just be strung out on sugar. God bless you. So we're all into being visionaries of what exists and what can we build upon there. This bookstore is part of being a visionary, for it was tiny and small, and everyone kept saying it was supposed to be over there, but it's not there anymore. So if it's not there anymore, where can it be? Ask that with me. Where can it be? So it means moving things around, shape-shifting, changing things. And we do visioning from where the place in which we stand, not the place where we used to stand. You may have heard me say this before when couples would come to me and they're not having the easiest time in their relationship and they say, "We want it to be the way it used to be." And I go, "I can't help you. I can't help you. Nothing is about what used to be. God is not a Maytag repair person. It's about what is evolving now. Start there. Start to that new place of what you can envision, because you are envisioning something every moment. If you are breathing, you are a visionary. Yes? And so I want to share with you this morning the idea of, with shamanic teaching, about a visionary as to when we are operating from a healthy, well-rounded place. So maybe that would mean most unity people would be operating from that place. Does that sound good? We express purpose in dreams. We show up as our authentic self, being who we are. And we come from a place of honoring the 4 ways of seeing. Yes, there's 4. Intuition, perception, insight, and visioning, meaning paradigm shifting. That's what we did when we went from a little room to paradigm shifting to a staff creating a beautiful bookstore. When we are not in our healthiest of well-being, when we're not prayed up, when we haven't reminded ourselves that God in me, through me, as me today, when we are in our shadow. How many of you ever find yourself in your shadow? 12 of you in the front. Okay. Maybe we can change the lighting. No, really. When we are in our shadow, here's how a visionary can show up: as a false self, as pretentious, abandoning self for the need of acceptance and approval, projecting onto others, and doing most things to avoid difficulty. An example of that would be a family that gathers together every Thanksgiving, though very few have had a good time for the last 40 years. But it's what you do, right? And so it's what do we do when we are in the shadow? And we all go through this. This isn't about evolution of you get so evolved that doesn't come along sometime and you find yourself back in the shadow, saying things you don't really mean, projecting onto others. They look upset with me. You know, it becomes other-oriented instead of activating from self. The final one is that you are right. the need to be right. Wayne Dyer says most people would rather be right than kind. Let's breathe that in. And do you know what the medicine is for a visionary to come back into this place of acceptance, love, and wholeness, of intuiting a certain situation? The medicine is prayer. Whenever you're feeling like you're not being true to yourself, whenever you're on some kind of tangent of self-righteousness, whenever you catch yourself talking about others instead of saying, if I see it, it's in me. Let's say that. If I see it, it's in me. When I'm saying something about other people, BB will tell you, I go, whoa, wait a minute. I got to go pray. And it's a tool that works most effectively. And it is instantaneous that it shifts us back into a place of our intuition and our well-being. That's why the title of the talk is, It Is About You. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Most people miss that part. They go, love thy neighbor. Well, that's easy to do if you love your neighbor as yourself, meaning if you've done your inner work and you feel comfortable with who you are, nothing or no one threatens you ever. Because you're giving the right for inclusion and acceptance to all people. Make sense? Okay, very good. Prayer is a very powerful thing. I've spoken about it here before, but the way I'm going to address it today is the power of prayer. Prayer is about invoking. It's about calling into. If you look at the acronym of prayer, the P is power. R is your relationship with it, that you are showing up as the divine. And when you understand that, then you also understand what you are invoking and what you are praying for is absolute. And it is coming to you as a way of manifestation. The A is acknowledging what it is that you are calling in. And the Y is you. Why? What do you need to do in order for it to happen? If you're calling in the love of your life, you may need to let go of all the stories about all the X's and the was's. You understand? There may be something within you that needs to shift. You may be suffering from ageism or storytelling that no longer suits you. What within you? So when you get to the E within prayer, you can energize it so the R is to release it. The power of prayer is about back in the day when the indigenous people, they were weather changers. They would hold the consciousness. They didn't go, let me see what they're saying on the news today. Let me see what people are telling me to think and feel. No. They went into the visionary of the intuition and said, what needs to happen here? I was thinking about this story. I was telling some friends at dinner that we were a week away from needing to be here in Santa Barbara, and we still didn't have a place to live. And I had flown out, and BB was still in New Orleans with our RV and our 3 animals. And I had flown out here, and that was part of my task, was to find us a home. And good luck with that in California, to have pets and a home. They sometimes don't go together, you know. So anyway, that was my task, was to find us a home 1 week away. And so we look, and we really knew we wanted to be right here. And we really love being off Via Real. And we're like, oh, there isn't anything. So I'm down in Ventura and Oxnard and, you know, and still we haven't found something. But we put in an application that wasn't where we wanted to be. So the morning of a Tuesday, I'm in my hotel room, and I look up, who's the archetype for houses? You know, let's start there. Gabrielle. I went, okay, Gabrielle. So I do what I call the best prayers. It's when you've had enough. Those are good. And I say to the divine, you ask us, you and Gabrielle, you ask us to leave our comfort zone. You ask us to relocate across the country, leave my mother behind, our little goddaughter, an amazing community. You have asked us, a beautiful home, one across the street to the beach. You've asked us to give up all of this. Are you kidding me? Well, let me see what you have to do. Oh, that's right. All you have to do is find us a place to live. Can you do that? This is how I'm talking to God, right? I mean, that's all you got to do. We've done everything else. Woo! And so I go and get on the plane. I'm type A, so I'm one of the first aboard. And so I look down, and there is a message that I didn't see before, nor did I know I had. And it was from a realtor in Santa Barbara. And she said, I announced about your situation this morning, and there's a villa, and it's available. It was exactly the same villa we had seen a year before that we had decided that we would have really liked. And the rest is history. But invoking and calling in, I mean, if I were you, I would clap for God. I think that's really exciting stuff. I mean, and this is where you want to come, and your energetic presence is to call that forth and to declare it and to know it. And, you know, I think one of the eras when people have taught prayer or received it in the past is more pious and more humble. There's nothing wrong with that, but sometimes you need to say to the earth, you need to move. You need to move. And you need to declare with the power of your throat chakra that this is how it needs to be. There's a story of a woman that she's all getting ready to go to church, and she goes to her husband, and she goes, what are you doing? You haven't even started getting dressed. He said, I don't want to go today. And she said, well, what do you mean you don't want to go today? He said, well, the congregation is cold. Not many people like me there, and I don't want to go. You know, you tell me why I should go. And she said, well, first of all, the congregation is warm. They're not cold. And there are a few people that like you there. And you're the pastor of the church. So, you know, you have to go. And I think that, you know, sometimes in our lives, and that's why I love being affiliated with community, is a check-in point. It's a check-in point for me to see where I'm at. I love it when people come up and say, I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say. And I go, me too. Because it's a checkpoint. There's something, we've made some kind of spiritual agreement here today that we are on the collective going to do something that shifts consciousness in this room and makes a forward movement, because that is, whether we like it or not, that is what life is. Life is forever evolving from the now moment right here. It is not based on the past. Our history can describe us, but it's not designed to define us. And that's where pain and suffering often come in, is people still talking about the 20-year-ago story. It's wonderful, but you're creating that 20-year story now if you still keep bringing it into the room. Yes? And so we look at how we're modeling, and especially this time of year, because in unity we believe in the Christ consciousness. And so we are here to shine, and we don't get caught in that commercialization and starting to talk about how busy we are and, oh my gosh, I got one more place to go with that same potluck dish. Oh my God. That's not what we get hooked into. That's not what we're about, because we are aware that we have the power of choice. We do want to come from our authentic selves. We do want to vision what would be the highest and best, and what could we bring the world at this particular time. Is what I'm saying, connecting with you. And so it's in that space. always used to laugh when I would train ministers going out at Unity Village. And I would say, please do us a favor. And at Christmas and Easter, don't start talking about being exhausted 3 months prior to the event, please. Please don't do that. They do that. Please don't do that. Please allow that to be a time for you to model what it is you say you represent. And call that in and call it forth. There's a cute little story about a little boy, and he goes into a local hardware store, and he asks the owner of the store if he could use his phone. So he calls a number, and a lady on the other end answers. And hello, and he said, ma'am, could I get a job cutting your grass? She said, no, I already have somebody. And he said, well, I'll give you half price. Then the other person is giving, no, I really like who I got. No, I'm very happy. I'll throw in doing your shrubs and everything else. No, dear, I really am pleased. So he hangs up the phone. And the hardware owner says, you know, I love your enthusiasm and I love your positive spirit. Would you let me hire you? He said, oh, no, I already have a job. I'm cutting her grass. I just wanted to see how I'm doing. For those of you that missed it, it's on YouTube later, okay? No, I just wanted to check in and see how I'm doing. And I think, that's the beauty of our teaching is we can look at our lives. My students used to ask me, I don't know what I believe. And I would say to them humbly, you know what you believe when you look at your life. If you believe your life purpose is just to be there for everybody else, then that's your life experience. If you believe that you are a light and you are here to emanate truth and love, that's your experience. If you believe that you're here to have wealth to share, that's going to be your experience. You live out what your beliefs are. If you look at the outer world and you want it to be different, it requires us to be different. Years ago, I would say over and over again, like so many people, I'm waiting on my dreams to come true. But I realized as long as I came from that place, it was a delay in the waiting room of the universe. And I started saying, my dreams are waiting on me to come true. It literally shifted everything. What part within me needs to change or rearrange in order that I realize what I am seeking? And that's when things started really unfolding in the most beautiful way. So we want to own the presence of power of prayer. And I wanted to give you a true example of a woman in Zimbabwe named Terarai Trent. And Terarai Trent goes on record as being Oprah's most noted guest in a 25-year period. And she lived in Zimbabwe. And when she was a little girl, she was married off at 11 years old. And she wanted to go to school. She had a big dream. She wanted to go to school and she wanted to live that out. And it wasn't possible. Married at 11 to a very abusive husband, and before she was even 20, she had already had 5 children. But her mother told her, don't ever lose sight of your dream. And so she took a little box and she put her dreams, she wrote them down, put them in a box. She took the box in the backyard and she buried it. And in the box, she wanted to get a degree. She wanted to get a BA. She wanted to get a master's degree. And she wanted to get a PhD. And one day along the way, a woman from Heifer International came through and was talking to her and said, what do you want to do? What would you like to do with your life? What's your dream? And she said, I want my PhD. And the woman said, then you will have it. So her husband moves her to America and she gets a BA degree. And then he got deported because he was abusive. She would go on to get her master's. Every time she would go back to Zimbabwe, she would mark out what she had accomplished. And now she has her PhD. This story is about, doesn't matter where you came from. She came from a place with no electricity, no opportunities that were even there. But out of being a visionary, instead of living life in a shadow, she came into the light and she saw what is possible. So I'll close by saying there was a man that was asked to paint the white line in the road. So he was given a bucket and a paintbrush of white paint, and he was painting the line. And the first day he painted for 2 miles. The second day he only went a mile. And the third day he only went a half a mile. So the supervisor said, I don't understand. You did so great the first day. You did 2 miles of white line in the road. Why did you not continue? And by the third day, you only did a half a mile. What's going on? And he said, well, I kept getting further and further away from my paintbrush, from my bucket of paint, excuse me. So don't get further and further away from the vision of who you are. Don't get further and further away from whatever and wherever you are. If anything is stagnant because you're willing or you're settling, pull it out. Bring it to a new revelation and be willing to invoke and call it into your life. This is the year. Let's do it, not only for our own being, but for one another. Thank you for listening. Thank you.